He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome to Coast View, the show that celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi, and Mississippi for that matter, a better place to live, work, and play. Mark Twain once said, "The two most important days of your life are the day that you're born and the day that you find out why." I love that quote. Two most important days of your life are the day the day you were born and the day you find out why. And Toni Morrison, who is a critically acclaimed American novelist, she once said that if you surrender to the wind, you can ride it. I love that too, and that really applies to our guest today, Robert St. John. Let me tell you a little bit more about Robert. Robert's a chef and a restaurant owner in Hattiesburg. That doesn't even begin to explain who he is, though. He was actually recently selected to the governor's task force on the pandemic restart Mississippi effort. He was actually a leader in that effort. He's an author. While I was at the Sun Herald, we began running his syndicated food column, and really enjoyed getting to know him through that column. He's passionately discovered the intersection between food and culture and art and life. He's just a smart guy who surrendered to the wind and is riding it. We visited with him back in April for a couple of segments, but I've really been looking forward to coming back and spending a little bit more deeper experience having this conversation with him. So here we go. Robert, you once said, "It's a tough job, but someone has to chew it," didn't you?
Yeah, I did say that. Yeah. It's, I love the restaurant business. And that's kind of what I was saying there is that a lot of people, restaurant business is very brutal. Bankers hate the restaurant business. The mortality rate is not good. The failure rate there is high. But if you got the bug, and you love it like I do, then you don't want to do anything else. And, someone once said, find your hobby and figure out how to get paid for it, and you'll be a happy man. And that's kind of what I've done. And so it is a tough job. And as you can see, I have no problem chewing it. I like to eat, and that's what I do. Thanks. And let me just say before you really get into it, I appreciate you having me on today. And Mississippi Gulf Coast, even though I grew up in Hattiesburg here, the Gulf Coast is my second home. My dad died when I was 6, and my mom raised my brother and me up. We didn't have a lot of money. She was an art teacher, but she didn't think she'd be able to hunt, and she knew she couldn't play football, but she figured she could learn how to fish. And so she bought a small fish camp where a lot of other families from Hattiesburg had a place up the Pascagoula River on Johns Bayou. And so I spent my summers on the Mississippi Gulf Coast shrimping and crabbing and fishing and swimming and learning how to ski and eating at Bear Seb's and the Friendship House and all those great places. So the coast is a second home to me, and it's, I appreciate everything you've done down there, Ricky, to make that a better place. And so happy to be here.
Well, thank you, buddy. I appreciate you. And people get a really deeper understanding on why I wanted to have you back on the show, because I know that you're passionate about coastal Mississippi. As you and I talked about in our last show, while I knew you, I got to know you better during the Katrina recovery effort, and I was always interested. I mean, we had to be in the middle of that. I mean, I was involved in the Governor's Commission, but you were involved in the Governor's Commission, and when we would meet, you would drive down from Hattiesburg, and you were involved and active, and I really got to see personally your passion for this place and how much you really wanted to see coastal Mississippi come back, and you wanted to play your part in that effort, and I always appreciated you for it. You said that the important things in life are the 5 F's: faith, family, food, friends, and fun. And what we'll learn in this conversation today is why the restaurant business is just one extension of you. And in your business, in your food, and the experience that you give to people, is all of the experience that you've gained, the learnings that you've gained from traveling around the world, your connection with people, the story that we will tell about your association with Wyatt Waters. What a fascinating conversation that will be. But, you really do get it. And, one of the things, I mentioned this too before we went on the air, but one of the reasons why I love doing this show so much is it has given me an opportunity to focus on people in ways I didn't get a chance to when I was in the fast-paced life of my publisher life. You get to know people okay, but you don't really ever get to know people. And this show gives me a chance now. I'm still retired. This is kind of a fun gig on the side. But the thing that gives me a chance to really focus on an individual and begin to understand the essence of who they are. And I get to share that with the audience, but more importantly, I get to share that with me. And it's just a great little, discovery session for me. I don't know if you saw it or heard about it, but I had the four governors on my show a couple of weeks ago. I had Mavis Musgrove, Barbara, and Bryant all at the same time, all four of them at one time. And during the conversation, we talked about the heart of Mississippi, and we talked about what makes this place so special. In fact, during it, I asked them, if you had one thing that you would pick, what would it be that you would want people to come see? And they mentioned, one mentioned a really cool state park, one mentioned the Blues Trail, somebody else mentioned the Civil Rights Museum. Governor Bryant talked about coastal Mississippi and how that's our vacation in Mississippi. But one of the things that you've done is that you have really immersed yourself, and that your Italy experience helped you see that to some extent. But what I want to do, let's start with the conversation as it relates to writing your first book, and then how you came to know Wyatt, and then the evolution of your relationship with Wyatt and the palate to palate and all that came as a result of that. I'd love to tell that story. So why don't we kind of dive into that? We were talking about Frances Carnes. Tell me about her, how she impacted you.
Yeah, it's a lady named Frances Carnes who ran the Gifted Studies program at the University of Southern Mississippi here in Hattiesburg. She founded it. It's named for her. She did a lot of great work there for probably 40 years or more, maybe. She was one of our, if not the best customer in our restaurants. We have a place called the Purple Parrot in Crescent City Grill at the time. We opened in 1987. She and her husband, Ray, would come in every day. And that's just not rhetoric. They literally came in every day and sometimes 4 or 5 nights a week. And Frances is one of these people. She's always trying to instigate something and get something started and just enthusiasm, and every time I'd see her, Robert, you ought to start doing this, or Robert, you ought to look into this. And she got on a kick in the mid to late 90s, I think it was. And if I'd see her and say, Robert, you ought to do a cookbook. Robert, you ought to do. Next time I'd see her, Robert, how's that cookbook coming? I said, Frances, I don't have time to do a cookbook. I have no desire to do a cookbook. I'm too busy opening these restaurants, and my kids were just being born. Next time I'd see her, when are you going to do a cookbook? And this went on for a few months. And finally, I walked out into the Purple Parrot dining room one day, table 3. I remember it like it's yesterday. She was sitting with a gentleman. She said, Robert, come over here, sit down. I did. She said, this is so-and-so with this publishing company. Tell him about your cookbook. Well, I didn't have a cookbook. I didn't know. And so I was trying to think quickly on my feet. And I said, well, if I were to do a cookbook, I would have recipes that I developed here at the restaurant. I guess at the time, maybe we've been open a little more than 10 years. I would have stories like in my newspaper column about the South and growing up in the South and food in the South. And then I said, and I'd have watercolors by Wyatt Waters. But without missing a beat, this publisher said, well, if you get Wyatt Waters, you got a book deal. The problem is I didn't know Wyatt Waters. And but he had 2 books out at the time, and I was a big fan of his. And one of the books, the first book he did was about Jackson. The second book was called Painting Home, and he had gone all over Mississippi painting different parts of Mississippi, towns and communities. And when he came to Hattiesburg, and this is what connected for me, when he came to Hattiesburg, if you know Hattiesburg, probably the 2 most iconic structures, I guess, in Hattiesburg would be the administration building at USM, the dome, on campus. It was a very iconic structure. And then there's kind of a Victorian house downtown called the McLeod House. You see it show up a lot. Most artists, if they were depicting Hattiesburg, would choose one or two or both of those things. Wyatt chose the old Beverly Drive-In Theater out there on 49, which was every bit as iconic, and the California Sandwich Shop downtown Hattiesburg. And as soon as I saw that, way before this meeting I'm talking about, I said, I get this guy. Those are way better choices for me. That says more about this place than those typical, stereotypical kind of structures. And so that's why I brought him. I was a big fan of his artwork and that. And so... Yeah.
So let's do this, Robert. We're going to go to the break. When we come back to the break, we'll continue to zero in on Wyatt, this 21, 22-year marriage that you have with this guy, and how it's really transformed both of you, actually, in so many incredible ways. So anyway, this is Robert St. John's, the restaurateur, author, talented guy. We're going to continue our conversation about Wyatt Waters on the other side of this break.
Follow SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook. Facebook.com/SuperTalk MS Coast 103.1.
Hey, want to come work for the #1 radio group on the coast? TeleSouth Media has a great opportunity for an outside sales consultant. Get paid while having fun and work in the exciting, fast-paced world of radio. We have award-winning stations like 97.9 CPR Rocks, 105.9 The Monkey, G96.7, SuperTalk 103.1, and 103.5 The Possum. Take the first step towards a new and rewarding career. Submit your resume to Jesse@telesouth.com. That's JESSE@telesouth.com. TeleSouth Media is an equal employment opportunity employer. Get out of the house and over to Big Play today. 2 massive arcades, bowling, go-karts, 2 mini golf courses, a 2-story state-of-the-art laser tag arena, bumper cars, and right now get a $50 game card for only $25. Visit our station's Facebook and print on demand so you can play at Big Play Entertainment Center now. These deals won't last long, so make sure you get your half-off deal. Big Play Entertainment Center, Highway 90 Biloxi. Bowl, play, eat. Go to our station's Facebook to get your half-off deal now.
This is House Call for Health. There may be no greater medical mystery and no greater tragedy than sudden infant death syndrome. It used to be known as crib death. For no apparent reason, a presumably healthy sleeping baby dies. Medical experts don't have clear-cut answers to what causes sudden infant death, or SIDS, but now they have 2 risk factors: smoking and drinking during pregnancy beyond the first 3 months. A new study finds that babies whose mothers drank alcohol and smoked tobacco after the first trimester are at far greater risk of SIDS, 12 times greater. Previous studies showed a risk of smoking and drinking individually. This study says doing both drastically increases the danger. The research is sponsored by the National Institutes of Health, which is calling for greater publicity about the danger and improved screening at the very beginning of a pregnancy. For more health news, go to foxnewshealth.com. House Call for Health. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be.
There is no typical firefighter.
Whether you're a Rebel, a Bulldog, a Golden Eagle, or just a sports fan, SuperTalk Mississippi has got a podcast for you. For you. Sports Talk Mississippi, The Rebel Report, Thunder and Lightning, the SuperTalk Eagle Hour, and The Borky Show are all now available for you. And it's all free. Get them all on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for SuperTalk on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
When we went to the break, we were having a conversation, Robert St. John and I, about Wyatt Waters. And you probably know them from the Mississippi Public Broadcasting show, Palate to Palate, and their long association together. We'll talk more about that here in just a second. But you were talking about how his art captured you, and I get it. Kyle, if you'll show that one slide that I wanted you to show. Here, for our Facebook audience and YouTube audience, we're showing a picture of just an old, picture, could be anywhere, of a building. But his ability to capture the essence of a scene. I watched a particular video with Wyatt where he said he just kind of holds the paintbrush up there and lets the paintbrush talk. And he said somehow that's his subconscious that's doing it. But it is fascinating to watch him paint. You've seen him paint probably hundreds of watercolors over your life with him. But does he always talk while he's painting?
If someone's there, I don't know how he does it, but people, we've been all over Italy together working on our third book together. And people gather around, whether he's in Sicily or Milan or Venice, or he's in Florence, Mississippi. People kind of see him and gather around in the early part of his career. He was in downtown Jackson, and he was painting downtown Jackson and recording downtown Jackson as they were bringing it down, really. And, it's a lot of those early paintings are of buildings and places that aren't there anymore. And so he can do that. He has the innate ability to communicate while he is painting. And but if no one's around, he usually has headphones on, listening to the Beatles or something like that.
Let's show a couple of the books covers, Kyle, that you guys have done together. A Mississippi Palate. Yeah. That must have been fun to do with him.
Absolutely. That was our fourth book together, and came out a couple of years ago on the heels of that Italian book, An Italian Palate. And we kind of we covered Italy in 2011. We covered from the southernmost tip of Sicily to the Alps, the entire country, while I was over there with my wife and two kids. I spent 6 months just traveling around Europe with my family. The 10 weeks we were in Italy, Wyatt joined us. And what you see on the cover there of An Italian Palate, that is just right down the road from a villa that we stayed in then, and we continue to stay in now when we travel over there, and ended up I'm in the business of leading tours over there now. Something I never thought. Most everything I do, whether it's books or actually even restaurants or TV shows or tours, none of that I planned. On this kind of crazy career that I've had, it's just things have come up and opportunities have happened, and I guess I've remained open to them, and I've probably been in the right place at the right time, and had a lot of grace and a lot of luck over the years.
Well, that's why I say that you're riding the wind. You just let the opportunities make themselves known to you, and you're just such a sponge for culture and experience and the connections, all these connections to life. It's so cool to see that. I was interested that in 2002, you guys almost pulled off doing your Palate to Palate show, something similar to that. You had the pilot done with Turner South, and just as you were about to launch it, Turner South was bought by Fox Sports.
Yeah, there was to back that up, there's a piece I wrote in my column, actually, maybe around 2099, somewhere in there, called My South. And it ended up being one of these viral emails before we even knew what a viral email was. And Turner South Network got a hold of that and purchased the right of it for their imaging and branding. And part of that deal with Turner South is that we'd have a pilot episode. And so we went ahead and filmed. Wyatt and I filmed a pilot and went to Atlanta. They loved it. They were about to air it. It was going to be a show on Turner South, and then Fox Sports bought the network really to get the Atlanta Braves. And so that didn't happen, but it was always kind of in the back of our minds that, this TV thing might be a fun project to do, to travel around and kind of showcase what we love about, whether it's Mississippi or Italy or the South, wherever. We were actually on our way to Spain in March, this past March, to film season 6 of Palate to Palate when, all of this happened, and it kind of grounded us there. But
yeah, my wife and I, my son lived in Spain last year, learning Spanish. And my wife and I went to visit him while he was there. What a great experience that was! And from there, actually, we went to Croatia and spent some time in Split and down to Dubrovnik, and then the islands off the coast. Just amazing place. So look,
you got a lot of Croatians there on the Mississippi Gulf Coast.
I married a Croatian.
Todd Rossetti was in my restaurant yesterday. We were.
I know Todd very well. My wife's a Bohanovich.
Okay, well there you go.
So you got the idea of doing these dual demos you talk about, this where you and Wyatt are together, but it's probably the only thing like it in America where you have an artist and a food guy together in this experiential situation. Are you the only ones?
I don't know. I think so. Probably. He says we invented the coffee table cookbook. I don't know if that's true or not, but I never knew of any before that. But that came out of when the first book came out, which is called A Southern Palate. That book came out in 2002, I believe, and just as a promotional thing, they had us at a McRae's department store. And Wyatt was going to do a watercolor demo, and I was doing a cooking demo, and it was kind of back and forth, and we barely knew each other then. We had worked on this book, and we were kind of just becoming close friends, and it hit, and it was a really I think we connected with each other. We had a good time. The people in the audience had a good time. And so we took it on the road, and we traveled all around the South promoting that book, and this is 20 years later, I guess, and we've done maybe close to 200 of those things, a lot of times for charity. We just did one on the Mississippi Gulf Coast for the Oro Keep Museum back, I want to say it was in February, maybe January, towards, it seems like 2 years ago now with what's going on, but
I love
doing that.
I love the story where you guys did one of your shows at a lingerie department in Knoxville, and you almost caught some panties on fire.
Yeah, that's good. That's a true story. That was on that initial tour. Wyatt actually did a watercolor without water. I don't know if he was spitting on the brush or what he was doing, but I was using kind of butane burners, and they put us in the lingerie section. There were maybe 4 people there. It was nobody there, but. Yeah, I almost caught a rack of panties on fire. That's true. True story. I wish it wasn't.
Well, what's so interesting about, first of all, how is it that you and Wyatt made such a strong connection the way that you did? First of all, you're fast friends, of course.
Yeah.
But there's such a chemistry between the two of you. What happened? How did that happen?
Well, so kind of to pick up where we left off on the Francis Carnes thing, I didn't know Wyatt, but the guy said he'd do a book if we did it together. And so the next day I drove to Clinton to the Wyatt Waters Gallery, which he had just opened. And I walked in. I had never met him. I said, hey, I'm Robert St. John. I've got an idea for a cookbook. I think it'd be like a coffee table cookbook. It'd be your art, my recipes, some stories. And we talked about that for maybe 30 minutes, and then we spent the next 4 hours talking about the Beatles. And he and I are huge Beatles fans, and that's kind of where we connected right off the bat. And so we worked on that book, and we never planned on doing another book. We never planned on a TV show. We never planned on touring around. Never planned on anything. We were just going to do this book, and everything has kind of, grown organically out of that.
That's incredible. When you talk about growing organically, the wind has brought you guys all over the place over time. You mentioned Italy, but what I want to do is I want to dive into how Italy changed you. But before we do that, because that's a longer story, and we're getting a little bit closer to the break time here. Wyatt has helped you become a better restaurateur, hasn't he?
Oh, I would think so. He says a lot of times, I've heard him say it 100 times, that art is anything done at a superior level. And to the extent that I do that, whether I do it or not, I don't know. I certainly strive to do that. And yeah, he's got great work ethic. He's been a great example to me, really like a brother, from another mother too. So we're we've traveled around, done a lot together, experienced a lot together, and have had a good time the whole time.
What I want to do, we're getting close to the break, but one of the things I want to do when we come back is talk about how your association with White, your work together, has given you such an amazing appreciation for the state of Mississippi. And I often talk about, we have a competitive advantage here in coastal Mississippi and across Mississippi, because in this pandemic environment, as more people drive, less people fly, there's this opportunity to come see this special place. And I want to zero in for just a second about why this place has become so special to you. We'll be back with Robert St. John after this break.
You can also listen live to SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on your Amazon Alexa devices. Once you've enabled the skill, just say, Alexa, open SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast.
Be sure to go by this station's website and check out the half-off deals. Audubon Zoo tickets for just $15. That's half price. $30 zoo tickets for just $15. Again, go to this station's website or Facebook. Look for the half-off deals logo to purchase yours now.
If a muckety muck wants you to hear what they got to say, they come here first and sit down with Gallo and JT. This is ground zero for all Mississippi muckety mucks. SuperTalk Mississippi. Watch your favorite SuperTalk shows in HD. Just go to supertalktv.com. Ever wonder what goes on in the studio during the shows? Now you can watch what happens in HD. SuperTalk TV, streaming now on supertalktv.com.
The Dean's List with Janice Dean.
A compassionate young man who became a dinner companion for a stranger makes today's Dean's List. Lisa Mealander and her family had been eating at the Eaton Park in Belle Vernon, Pennsylvania, when she noticed how her server was interacting with a senior patron. The server, Dylan Teetle, had dropped to one knee so he could give his full attention to the gentleman. Lisa wrote on Facebook, "The man apologized for not hearing well, and he talked about how he lost his hearing during the war. He was 91 years old with many stories to tell, and Dylan patiently listened, giving him his full attention. He also helped the man figure out a meal from the menu before putting the order into the kitchen." Lisa tried to flag Dylan down so she could offer to pay for the man's meal. Dylan said someone else had already taken care of the check. Before leaving her table, Lisa snapped pictures of Dylan chatting with the senior and published them to Facebook, where they have been since shared thousands of times. Thank you, Dylan, for your kindness, and Lisa for sharing this story with all of us. Janice Dean, Fox News.
Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else. Staying informed is a full-time job, even more so during an election year. That's why SuperTalk is here. With Fox News, News Mississippi, and the Super Talkers, you'll go inside the campaigns, and we'll separate what's real from what's not to bring you the latest information that matters. From now until you go into the voting booth on November 3rd, your election headquarters is Super Talk Mississippi. Available on the Super Talk app and at supertalk.fm. From the Gallo Radio Show archives.
In the house, Mike Hurst.
When I started at the end of 2017, sadly, our office had gotten so low during the last administration. I think in FY16, we prosecuted 11 illegal immigration cases, 11, which is embarrassing. First year I was there, we had jumped almost 700% to 77 prosecutions. And Paul, that number I think is going to increase very much more this year. We are continuing to see illegal immigration impact crime around the state. I'll give you a perfect example. About a month ago, we prosecuted an illegal alien who had brought 9 kilos of heroin and 1 kilo of fentanyl through our state. Now, to give your listeners an idea of what 2.2 pounds of fentanyl will do, that will wipe out 1 million people, Paul. That'll wipe out a third of our state.
This has been another Gallo Radio Show audio archive.
Everyone knows the only thing better than pizza is free pizza, and right now, buy a $10 gift certificate to CiCi's Pizza for only $5. It's like buying a pizza and getting a pizza for free. Go to our station's website or Facebook. Look for the Half Off Deals logo to purchase this amazing deal right now.
What decisions are being made by state lawmakers, and how will they affect you, your family, and community? If you listen, you'll know. SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk app, and at supertalk.fl.
Hi, I'm Billy Kinder, host of Big Billy Kinder Outdoors here. The show Saturdays at 1, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Turkeys, whitetail, Grenada Lake crappie, or Gulfport redfish. We enjoy it all, especially when you're in camp with us on SuperTalk Mississippi.
We give HPV vaccine to children at 11 or 12 years of age. I have 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, and I've given the vaccine to all of them.
SuperTalk. Nobody keeps Mississippi informed like we do. With 12 stations covering all 82 counties. If it happens in your state, we're on top of it. The news, the weather, the sports, and the talk that's important to you. The issues that matter to you, your family, and your bank account. It's all right here. And when you're away from home, depend on the SuperTalk app and supertalk.fm to stay in the know. We're proud to serve our fellow Mississippians. SuperTalk Mississippi. He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Robert St. John here. He's an author, restaurateur, cultural, icon. He's a friend, great friend of this show and good friend of mine. When we went to the break, I wanted to zero in just a little bit because your journey over the past, say, 20 years has given you an incredible appreciation for this place we call Mississippi. There is a stereotype that people think about, but then there's the reality. And you've really gone on a mission to help introduce the reality of this place to the world. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, so, I think, how Texans are proud of Texas. You take that, and that's kind of me with Mississippi times 10. I love this state. I mean, I really do. I could live other places, but I choose to live here. And the thing is, and I think, Ricky, what people miss about it is it's the people. And I'm not trying to have some cheesy moment and explain some kind of, but it really, really is. My wife and I had this conversation the other day. I know a couple of people who made some money and ended up, they lived here and then they moved to North Carolina and got a cabin in the mountains, and they wake up to a pretty view and the weather's cool and that's kind of nice. But at the end of the day, your roots are here and your friends are here and your family is here and your experiences are here. And I couldn't do that. And so it's the people that keeps me grounded in this state and just the food. Morgan Freeman once said in an interview, somebody said, you could live anywhere in the world. Why do you live in Mississippi? And he said, I live in Mississippi because I could live anywhere in the world. And then he followed it up with, hell, I'd eat here for the food alone. I'd live here for the food alone. And so, I agree with that. And I love this place. I'm probably 6th or 7th generation Mississippian, and my roots are here. My friendships are here. My family's here. I'm able to travel. I'm blessed enough to be able to travel and do things like that. But, it's always great.
I often say on the show, you've heard me say this before, that we learned after Katrina that buildings don't make a community, the people do. Yeah. That what makes this such an incredible place, I'm not just talking about coastal Mississippi, but the whole state of Mississippi, is that, at the end of the day, we wouldn't be who we were if it weren't for the people here and the heart and soul of this place. They're very generous. It's always in the top tier of the United States in terms of generosity. Just a very special place. Hey, we don't have time to go on your entire Italy tour, but it changed you. I mean, the time in Italy changed you, and it changed Wyatt as well. How did it change you?
So what I did in 2011, I always had this plan. When my kids would turn 10 and 14, we were going to go 1 month every summer to a different country and learn the country and dive deep into the culture. And it hit me one time, they're getting older. Why don't I just do it all at once? And so in 2011, my wife, my 14-year-old daughter, my 10-year-old son, and I flew over to Sweden, bought a Volvo, and spent the next 6 months driving around to 17 countries, 72 cities on 2 continents. And it was the most, it was the best thing I'll ever do, for not only for my family, but for myself. And everything is such a monumental thing in the life of our family. Everything is measured kind of before the trip and after the trip. But the 10 weeks we spent in Italy, I flew Wyatt over, and he and I worked on that book, An Italian Palate. And something about, before I went on the trip, I probably would have told you that if to rank the countries I was going to like most, number 1 would probably be France, number 2 Spain, number 3 England. But once we did it and we hit 17 countries, Italy, overwhelmingly, something just spoke to me about that country and the people, and specifically Tuscany. And we spent a good bit of time in Tuscany. And Tuscany is a lot like the American South. It really is. The people they're family oriented, they're friendly, they love food. It's an agrarian society. They're not doing cottons and soybeans. They're doing, wine and they're doing grapes and olives. But I really connected to that place. And the book came out. And we went on the book tour. And while we were on the book tour, because I had been writing my column from over there, and Wyatt had been posting, Instagram of his paintings from all over Italy. While we're at book signings and signing books, people started asking, "Man, I wish you'd take me to Italy. I'd love to go see that place you wrote about, or I'd love to see the place Wyatt painted." And we kept, initially, you just think that's somebody kind of making conversation, while you sign their book. But we kept hearing it. And I called Wyatt up one day and I said, "Wyatt, I think people want us to take them to Italy." And so I made one Facebook post, and we filled up like 25 people in an afternoon. And then, so we had a waiting list. So there was another group and then another group. And that just came. For the last 3 years, I've spent 3 months a year in Italy, leading groups of 25 kind of all around the state, all around the country there.
It's so interesting. Yeah. And then of course the Italy perspective helped refine how doggedly determined you were to introduce Mississippi to the world. So it's just such an interesting evolution.
Yeah. I can't argue that. It's never really, be honest with you, I never thought about it that way, but that's an interesting perspective. I brought a lot of our friends. I've made so many good friends over there. They're the best people. I love them. And we brought them over here, and we've taken them all around. They love Mississippi. Everybody over there in Italy, and I've known some pretty high profile chefs over there who are friends, and everybody knows about Mississippi and the parts of Italy that we visit, and the ones that come over just fall in love with it. They really do.
So let's talk about Extra Table for a second. Yeah. Extra Table, your charity, 100% of the proceeds that come into Extra Table go to buying healthy foods for people who need food, who can't afford healthy foods themselves. I want you can give us a quick headline on Extra Table for people who have not heard that conversation. Yeah. And tell us about how you and Mac McAnally came together around that.
All right. Extra Table I started back about a little over 10 years ago, and it's a very simple premise. It's a 501c3 nonprofit, and what we do is we raise money. We use 100% of that money to purchase healthy food, and then we deliver it to food pantries all over the state. We have 5 on the Mississippi Gulf Coast that we deliver to. And the thing about it is Mississippi, we used to be number one in food insecurity. We're number two now. So we're moving up. We're number one in obesity. And so when I founded Extra Table, I had a little problem reconciling those two. I was like, how can we be, number one in food insecurity and number one in obesity? Somebody's eating something somewhere. And what I learned is that those two always go hand in hand. If you don't have enough money to lead a healthy lifestyle, then you're basically living out of a convenience store, drinking the cheapest sugar drinks and Twinkies and snack foods for dinner. And so what do you have in Mississippi? You have over 670,000 Mississippians. Now, we're only 2.9 million. 670,000 Mississippians suffer from what the government calls food insecurity. 250,000 of those are kids who have a school breakfast and a school lunch and don't eat again until the next day. Over 125,000 are seniors. And right now, you've got seniors who are trying to figure out, can I pay the light bill or can I go to the grocery store? And it's a real thing. And that just hit me like a brick when I learned that. And so I started this thing called Extra Table. And right now we're shipping, I don't know, somewhere around 20 tons of food to over 40 different food pantries all across the state, all the way from North Mississippi to the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And during this pandemic, we've really ramped it up because what you've got so many people out of work. It's like the Depression with food lines, and great places like the Beau Rivage on the coast and the Hard Rock on the coast called us up, and we emptied out all of their perishables and their food at the beginning of this thing, and we delivered it to the agencies on the coast. We partnered with Borden's Dairy. We're shipping, I don't know, it's thousands of gallons of milk we're delivering to these food pantries everywhere. There are a lot of food pantries in Mississippi that are getting food to and soup kitchens who are getting food to those who need it. The problem is they're always running out of food. And so we take business principles. We partner with Benny Keith, Cisco, Chow Purchasing, and we use their purchasing power. We use their inventory, and most of the time we use their shipping to get this food out to other places. So we just kind of took business principles, applied them to a nonprofit. So now we've grown to the point that every $1 you spend with Extra Table goes 5.9 healthy meals to Mississippians in need. And when we first started, it was like $1 got a meal or something. I mean, we have grown, and really our purchasing power has moved up to where it's really almost 6 healthy meals for every $1. And what we do, the other thing I planted our flag on, is that 100% of the money we raise will go to purchase food.
So anyways, man, Extra Table's done some amazingly good work. I can't tell you how proud I am for the work that you're doing to keep that front and center in front of people, because you're really helping a lot of people. So this is Robert St. John. I want to tell the Mac McAnally story when we come back from break, and then we're going to talk about how the pandemic has changed the restaurant business. Back after this break.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen. Okay. Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi, and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. We are with the fabulous Norbert Putnam, as he played on so many hit records, you can't count them, and produced for some of the biggest acts ever. Norbert, Elvis.
And I want to tell you about Presley. He had two different voices. He would sit and talk to me in a very calm, low voice. And we were at Stack's one night, and we were having lunch. We always had lunch at midnight because he was nocturnal. We sat there and we have our sandwiches, and at 1 o'clock, he looked up. He said, "Hey, Put, come on, it's time for me to go beat Elvis." And he stood up, in a much deeper voice, he put on his macho voice. "Hey, fellas, it's 1 o'clock. Let's get cracking, okay?"
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, Amazon Alexa, and now on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
Well, let me know if you're en route.
49 Adam, to the unconscious, Main Street and West Road, 49 Adam.
A lot of people are just worried about supplies.
Our supplies are getting pretty low, and that gives us great concern.
Aside from the PPE issues, they're really worried about if they are exposed and they have to be away from work for a certain amount of time.
We're going to need some money there. And so that's one way the public can support us as well, is keep sending money into that support fund.
What I really truly hope is that people don't forget that feeling right now of wanting to volunteer and give back to their community.
I hope this doesn't dramatically change the volunteer fire service.
We serve on the front lines, fighting an invisible enemy and caring for our communities with courage and compassion. The COVID-19 crisis has challenged us like never before. Now, the men and women of America's hospitals and health systems are counting on Congress and the administration to stand with us as we stand ready to care for you in every way, every day.
Come work for the #1 radio group on the coast? TeleSouth Media has a great opportunity for an outside sales consultant. Get paid while having fun and work in the exciting, fast-paced world of radio. We have award-winning stations like 97.9 CPR Rocks, 105.9 The Monkey, G96.7, SuperTalk 103.1, and 103.5 The Possum. Take the first step towards a new and rewarding career. Submit your resume to Jesse@telesouth.com. That's JESSE@telesouth.com. TeleSouth Media is an equal employment opportunity employer.
Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk, Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else. Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on Super Talk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We're talking with Robert St. John. He's an author, restaurateur, entrepreneur, cultural icon, you name it. He's all of those things. We were talking about, though, his charity, the Extra Table, when we went to break. And I wanted him to real quickly tell the story about how he hooked Mac McAnally from Jimmy Buffett's Coral Reefer Band, a great songwriter, into the effort and had him collaborate with the USM Symphony Orchestra. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I'm a huge McAnally fan from way back. I mean, just really, really big McAnally fan and admirer of his work and his music. And I was emceeing a fundraiser in Jackson, I don't know how many years ago, for Dan Mullen's charity, actually. I think who it was for, and he was the entertainment. So I was MC, he was entertainment. We were talking backstage, and it came up while I was doing the MC deal where I talked about Extra Table and what Extra Table does. And backstage, he said, man, if there's anything I can ever do to help Extra Table, you know, I'm from Mississippi. I love Mississippi. I'd love to help. And so I thought, oh man, that's great. And so I was driving home that night from Jackson. I got to about McGee, and I called him back and I said, are you serious about, you know, he said, absolutely. And I said, well, look, we've got a great symphony orchestra at Southern Miss. These guys have played with Yo-Yo Ma and Placido Domingo and Itzhak Perlman and Ray Charles. I said, I would love to get your music and your songs with this symphony orchestra and Jay Dean, the conductor. He said, oh, I'm in. I've always wanted to do something like that. And so we did that. We did it in Hattiesburg, and then we went around the state and kind of used it right as Extra Table was launching as kind of the launching pad in each community to bring attention to Extra Table. And what we did, we came to the coast, did a great show at the Beau Rivage there. We did it in Jackson, Tupelo, Cleveland, Mississippi, and the Delta, and came back and did our final one a couple of years ago in Hattiesburg. And through that, we got to know him. And actually, his next to last album he released was with the symphony, and the USM Symphony that he recorded. And half the proceeds go to Extra Table, and the other half go to the symphony. So, he's the kind of guy that puts his time and effort and money where his mouth is. And he's good friend now.
That's so cool. It's just another thing about how you can, it's about these associations you get with people and how you can make the world a better place working together. So the restaurant business has changed dramatically as a result of the pandemic, and you've been on a mission to help restaurants figure out a way to kind of, make it through this very difficult time. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so this is absolutely the absolute worst time in the history of the restaurant business to be in the restaurant business, and we're charting just unnavigated waters at this point in time. It's rough, and a lot of restaurants are closing. We're going to see some closures within our company. We're doing our best to kind of hang on right now, but I early on in March was asked to join a group called the Independent Restaurant Coalition, which is a group of restaurateurs and chefs from across the country who have gotten together, and we're working to really save the restaurant industry. And another reason to be proud to be from Mississippi is that Senator Roger Wicker we worked with him to create this bill, which is called the Restaurants Act. It's in the Senate now. It has bipartisan support. There's also a bill in the House introduced by a Democrat from Oregon named Earl Blumenauer that also has bipartisan support. The bills are almost identical, and if passed, will save the restaurant industry in the country. And, this is an industry, it's a severely distressed industry that is extremely unique. People don't have a problem looking at airlines and saying, we got to help bail the airlines. The airlines employ 700,000 people. The restaurant industry employs 15 million people. And then you've got 10 million ancillary jobs like fishermen from the coast, suppliers, farmers, all of those people. Restaurants are 4% of the GDP in this country, almost $1 trillion. And independent restaurants, there are 11 million independent restaurants. And 11 million people who work in independent restaurants. There are about 500,000 independent restaurants. And I'll tell you this, you mentioned the Governor's Commission that I'm on during this pandemic, and Joe Sanderson is the chairman of that. And Joe and I were talking on the phone apart from one of our meetings one day, and he was talking about how he was about to have to retrofit 3 of his plants, I think 2 in Texas, 1 in Georgia, from food service restaurants to retail grocery stores, because it was understood in his industry that over 160,000 restaurants were going to close for this thing. And so what I urge you to do is hop on board and back Senator Wicker. We hope Congressman Palazzo on the coast will co-sign with this bill and save these restaurants on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And that's really what I've been working on as far as keeping my employees safe and healthy through this whole thing.
Well, I tell you what, I really, really appreciate your work and leadership on that. And it's clear something needs to be done. And man, I just pray that this bill passes sooner than later and provides this opportunity for you guys to bridge the gap to get on the other side of this really, really devastating moment economically for you guys. So, hey, thank you so much, Robert St. John, for spending some time with me this morning. I really appreciate it.
Ricky, you call me anytime, my friend.